Hey, welcome back to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast show where me, your artist friend Chris Dyer, talks to all his amazing creative friends. Today, I'm in Colfax, California, speaking with my good old friend Ashely Josephine Foreman, who's an amazing visionary painter, tattoo artist, and soulful lady with lots of medicine to share with us. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Blessings!
While the world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with the positive lens. Talks about passion between the women and the men. Chris Dyer and his creative friends. Darling, ooh, ooh, ooh.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Ashely Josephine
Chris motherfucking
Foreman.
Dyer.
Hell yeah! Thank you for having us over in your beautiful classroom.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, tell us, where are we? Colfax, California.
Yeah, we're in Colfax, California. Don't come here.
Why not?
We like it quiet and small.
Okay. Don't blow up the scene.
Don't blow up our scene. Yeah.
Because it's gorgeous out there.
It is. It's very pretty and still, small.
What got you here?
I grew up in Auburn down the way, and then I was living in Grass Valley, Nevada City for a long time, and I started tattooing at a shop in Auburn, and it just became a lot easier for me to live in Colfax because I can access either side of the mountain that way.
Yeah, it's not too far.
Easy commute, cheap rent.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is this gigantic studio with huge opening windows that today has transformed into a studio?
It's the Colfax Community Center, and it used to be a school, and it was built by the WPA in the 1940s.
Who's the WPA?
I already forgot what he called it. What that acronym stand for?
The World Economic Forum?
No, no, I already forgot what the W was for, but it was a project in the Great Depression to help people have paid work and get out of the Depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and they did a bunch of architecture and various buildings, and it was all funded by the president and the government to help stimulate the economy during the Great Depression.
Behind these canvases, we got some blackboards.
Yeah.
You got some chalk?
Not yet, but I'm definitely going to use these blackboards.
High ceilings, beautiful
Sick
windows.
light.
How stoked are you?
I'm really stoked. It's cool to have a little spot, especially this big and for like a reasonable rate, and I get to paint with my love and have a space to dedicate to making art, and it's really blessed.
And you're only going to paint here, not tattoo, right?
I'm not currently planning to tattoo here. Maybe in the future, if it was, we renovated the floors and I got it approved by the health department, I might do some private studio stuff, but I'm really happy at my shop in Auburn right now.
The floors might impede you from tattooing?
For tattooing, you have to have a non-porous floor, so we'd have to put some wood laminate or something down, and that's fine.
Why? Because the blood gets in there?
Yeah, blood or fluids and just anything. It's just more sanitary. You got to be able to clean it, and it needs to be non-porous.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that situation.
It's different state to state. I don't know if it's the same in Florida.
I don't know. Sometimes I have people like tattooing me in my living room, and I might have a rug.
I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
But, you move forward at different stages of your life, and in the future, could maybe turn this into my own little, first go at my own little private tattoo shop.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, it's, my plan here is actually just to, really, be with my inspiration and creativity, because tattooing is very demanding, right? And it's very much like a client output, and I have awesome clients, and I do get to make beautiful work I like, but it is its own thing, and these are their own thing, and it can be challenging to have time for this outside of that. So having a separate space is nice.
You got to keep them separated.
Currently, yeah,
nice.
For the time being.
Well, that wall along, you can make a mural-sized painting if you wanted to.
So I was thinking, maybe even do some just giant abstracts, something loose, since tattooing's so just put some big-ass shit up on the wall and just go.
You could do a further style jam with yourself.
Yeah, I guess.
Nice.
My dog.
Just throw your dog and rub it on the wall.
Yeah, totally.
No, that's not. I'm not against animals. So we met 2010.
Really?
I think
I have
so.
no idea what year it was, but it was a long time ago now.
I believe we met at Alchemis
Yeah.
Visionary Art Congress.
Oh, we'll probably crack up, but I think when I was in college, I sent you an email.
Oh, really?
Because you remember back then, before like Instagram and everything had really proliferated, like Facebook was new. So there was like you and David Heskin, Aloria, and even Amanda, and a lot of people who like kind of started to find each other and have a be on the internet for the first time, really. And I was a college student, and I was looking for artists like me, you know, like people that I felt like I could be like, oh, that's where I'm trying to go. And I think I sent you an email and you responded, which was really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, totally. And
Nice.
so like
I
I was like fan, you know, I was a fan, and then yeah, I remember like we talked a few times and met in Hawaii, and I was super young. I just got out of school.
Yeah. Did you go to the first Alchemis?
I think it was the second one I went to.
Okay, so Alchemis 2011.
I think it was 2011, yeah.
Yeah. How was that? Making it, so basically Alchemis was a visionary art focused festival at a time where visionary art only had like 30 people on the lineup.
Yeah.
That's different. But
totally. And even me being there as like a totally like super young, maybe 23-year-old or something, you know, like was kind of unusual or weird and kind of out of nowhere. But I got linked up because Rio, the guy who put the thing together, Rio Gordon, he was seeing a woman that I had connected with at a different festival years prior, and she had saw a lot of power in my work and was really...
What was her name?
Maricela.
Maricela, yeah. I forgot about her.
Yeah.
She was nice.
She's really nice and like pretty cool, tuned in lady, you know, very sincere.
Is she still around?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard from her in a long time.
Yeah, I've never heard about her after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her and a couple other ladies had just kind of like took a liking to me and like kind of dropped my name in the ear of people like Mark Henson and stuff. And so it was like a little tyke. They were like bringing me around. And so getting to go to something like that, I thought was, you know, obviously pretty cool. Like I didn't even walk in my graduation in college. I just left and got on a plane and went to Alchemis.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was like your graduation.
Was kind of. And yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience because I was so young and not totally like, I didn't have a lot of time to be professional or prepared, you know, and have experience, and had some setbacks with my printing and, you know, little things like that. And I think also the Big Island is like such a powerful place that it brings a lot of different sides to the surface.
It challenges you energetically.
It does, and it exposes things. And I felt like the island really took a liking to me. Like it could kind of like tune in with my mommy wounds, you know. It's like I feel like Pele has that like, come with me, little girl, I will help you heal. And so I felt like she was keeping me there, you know, like wanted me there and stuff. But yeah, the festival was an interesting experience. You know?
Feel like it was like a lot of pressure as you just coming up and finding your technique and your style, and all of a sudden you're up in stage with all these well-developed
people I looked up to, and it was just like a pretty fast exposure. And yeah, it was hard to not feel insecure, for sure. You know, human things that you feel, especially being young.
We all feel insecure either, no matter what. But
and my prints didn't get like done very well. I'd had a friend do them and like paid her really good, and she like did them, and they were all like kind of fuzzy, and they were, you know, so it was kind of a bummer in that way. But it was an interesting experience, you know, going out there and doing all that. It was a weird environment. We're like a bunch of hippies, but like in the Hilton.
Right.
And then there's like the Hawaiian energy and the colonizing energy. It's just a mix of strange world to enter into.
Right.
And I remember, having talks with you and stuff out there. And
was it at least inspiring and like, whoa, shit, I want to take my art to the next level? Or was almost like, I feel sometimes there's that fine line between like being so inspired where it's like, oh my God, this is amazing, I want to go and crush, and like, oh my God, this is so amazing, I can't even go anywhere close to that, so I'm just going to give up right now.
Probably, I'd say maybe a little of both. I think I'd had the early inspiration at a few other festivals and I felt like really included and optimistic. And then at this one, it was a little bit more of the other side of it, you know, feeling like, dude, there's my hero, and they're like asking me to come hang out and paint with them, and there's worthiness and just a lot coming in, you know.
Did you feel not included or accepted by some people?
I definitely felt things filtered through my wounds. So I think I remember Maricela and maybe even others being very kind and maternal, but I interpreted that painfully. Like, you know, because we're straddling these weird lines, you know, where we have these kind of hippies, kind of like young, you know, I was young and kind of like, you know, lived out in the woods, and then I'm coming into these sort of glamorous environments, and like I didn't have the experience or even maybe the social skills, and maybe had still like a lot of like trauma I was not aware of, at least not in a deep way yet. And so like I felt like when someone would suggest, hey, maybe you should like dress a little nicer and come down to the thing, I like was like, ugh, why don't you like me how I am? You know, like, so I mean, there was a bit of, you know, I don't know, life is complex.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And just so you know, even though I was like Chris Dyer and blah blah blah, I also felt insecure at that festival because I was like Eastern Canada, Peruvian, Quebecer thrown in this like
Totally.
Cali scene. Like
It was a
California is so
thing.
cool.
Yeah.
And here I am like a awkward. I was like the skateboard street art element in this world of realism.
Yeah.
And-
Totally.
and I
Totally. The
felt
like intense European influence on the art. Yeah, totally.
and I didn't really feel like I fit in. And they even, you had 30 very strong personalities,
Very
all
strong.
wanting to shine.
Extremely strong.
And
And then there's like, when you're kind of a rootsy person, like there's always that bullshit meter. And so when I meet people who are extremely famous, I definitely am not like catering to their bouginess. I'm like, hey, what's up? You want to live paint with me? And I don't know if you remember, but we did have like a little bit of an exchange about some of our experience and the parts that were more challenging and disappointing, just briefly, you know. And like, I know you struggled a little bit with like, yeah, some of these very like famous people, but they were sort of like kind of egocentric and like thought they were like super shaman, and you know, like, and they were just kind of like using like street drugs, and it was just off-putting. It was a spiritual ego facade thing, and I think that's an important part of the journey, is like going through those experiences and learning discernment. And I can definitely say that was a time in my life that was emphasizing those things, and the island was really bringing a lot of that up. I mean, I don't know if you remember the girl, the very first day of showing up at the festival, there was a girl that walked out naked into the courtyard and was like screaming and crying and then claiming she'd been raped. And like, it was
I
this.
don't remember that.
Dude, it
I
was
remember
this-
somebody was on acid being like yelling stuff, but I didn't.
Well, it's not that someone raped her on the site, but that she had been raped. She's like, is this what you want? And she's like being, you know, she's like naked and beautiful. And it was a weird, you know, it was a trauma, it was like a materialization of something really deep, right? Like a very deep collective energy. And it was like starting this ceremony of a festival, right? With this intense wound coming up. And I think like the Big Island brings that out.
Both the energy of the Big Island, but also the intense vortexes of each one of these artists who are magicians and wizards in their own right, all coming together. It almost just like opens a bunch of
a lot of unregulated, you know, everyone's got their way. Like, I'm not going to say like I think things need to be one way or another. It unfolds how it does, but there are those dimensions of the like psychedelics and the exploring and stuff that, you know, aren't in a container and can get messy, and people's stuff, pain, trauma, all these things, you know. But I remember, this deep divine feminine wound was like the first thing we encountered. Like, we're all, you know, the way it's set up, all the rooms are looking through this main courtyard, so everyone walks out hearing this girl just putting herself out there, you know. And
very interesting.
Yeah,
I don't want to bad talk Alchemis, because Alchemis was special to me, both of them, and it really was a good time to bring all these powerful visionaries together and give kind of like to me, after that, like, it helped me be part of the scene, even though I was like an Eastern Canadian, like out of the fish kind of, out of the water kind of fish. But
I just tried to treat everybody like they're just people and not like pander to ego too much. And like, you do make amazing art. I am inspired by you, but also like, what's up? Can you just like be like, what's up, and be a person and have mate and
you resonate with some,
paint together.
You don't resonate with others.
Inspire,
and we're all at different points of our journey.
Yeah.
I remember on like the last day, I was just really turned off by like, oh, this is supposed to be this spiritual thing.
Yes.
But Era is just getting high on drugs all night long, and I'm just not vibing. I'm not feeling it. So I just I walked away from the whole party.
Remember that.
And I went all the way to this big Buddha statue at the end to be by myself. And then all of a sudden, the
whole
whole
crew showed
party
up.
came in and they
Yep.
started partying and climbing the Buddha statue. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not this like, super anal person, but still, I don't think it's that proper
Maybe
to
we
like
shouldn't
be
be climbing the Buddha
climbing
statue,
on a
you
Buddha
guys.
statue.
Totally.
And I was a little bit turned off by that. After that, I didn't go to festivals for a couple
Yeah.
years, and I was kind of like disappointed by this
Yeah.
scene that was supposedly coming out spiritual, but was just a superficial facade
Yeah.
to it.
I would say that I have struggled with that as well,
Mhm.
that disappointment. And that was an event that a lot of that was kind of brought to the surface initially. But it was also kind of redirecting me, even though it was showing me that, it was also showing me like where to be. And it was like with the earth, and like the earth was like wanting to heal. And it was just like bringing these things up, right? Like the girl, like she was embodying something, or the comments and the way that made me feel. And then do you remember going to Jim Shannon's house? The guy that The Men Who Stare at Goats is based off of. And that was a neat, weird also experience of us having an actual like art congress and like talking about how we can like, help the planet and stuff. But I lost my wallet there. And remember,
no.
it was just gone. Me and Patrick Sellers had like climbed a tree and we were playing music in a tree, and I just lost it and it was gone. And it was the only $200 I had, and all my cards. I couldn't get back on my plane. Like the island was like, stay with me. But I was like, dude, I just got out of college. Like I don't want to be on an island. I want to go prove myself and go to festivals and share my art. And like, it was this weird thing, but like I said, I just graduated college and was there, and suddenly I had $2,200 in my bank account from the like financial aid, even though I just got, I just graduated. And so I called them up like, hey, I think I need to give you your money back because I just graduated. You just sent me $2,200. They're like, nope, it's yours. And I was like, why? They're like, there was just surplus and you won it in a random lottery. So I had money in the bank, but I didn't have any cards and no cash. And I was just kind of stuck on the island, but the island was just like providing. It was like, here's a condo at this weird hippie commune, and here's fruit.
You ended up staying for longer than your flight?
No, I got a little scared, like I wanted to go to Symbiosis and like, what's the other one?
Lightning
in a Bottle. That was the one, yeah. And I wanted to do all the things, and I kind of like fell into the thing and had more disappointments and all of that, and lost all my money and crawled back home, and that's where I'm at.
Did you, because when I'm recounting my experience of Alchemis and talking about like, oh, I was disappointed, but I got back into festivals and I found my own way of like, there's some people who will resonate with me and some people who don't.
Yeah.
And I can accept both people or all people regardless of where they are in the process.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you go back into the scene and you found yourself or allowed the goods and the bads of it all? Or did you just focus on the negative side and let that kind of like push you away from it?
I think not just focusing on the negative side, definitely like having compassion in the sense that we're all in our own places. I just put my attention elsewhere and gain new experiences and different places to put my energy that felt more in alignment, And, I think more of my attention went much more into like healing myself than to be like thinking about other people and how they're not meeting up to my expectations, like maybe working more on those filters and that perception of like not belonging and like where do those things come from, and just put more here.
Right, the actual work, because visionary art is just really like an expression of our spiritual path, but in the end, it's about the spiritual path. It's about the spiritual
and you don't have anything to
work.
paint about if you're not doing it.
Right. How was it being part of the visionary art scene or movement or community, since you had a head start from a lot of people? Like a lot of people would have loved to be on that 2011 Alchemist show and get a head start.
I was so full of joy and excitement to pursue that path. But I think, again, just being young, I didn't have the infrastructure. Like I didn't, and this is something me and Jordan have talked about too. Like we both have a lot of trauma, and like we didn't have the kind of like family background, like Amanda's got this family that like sends her to Europe, and like they believed in her. So it was like the inner, like it's even coming up speaking on it, but the nervous system itself was just not really capable of being in alignment with that, you know? And so I found challenges to that. And then because of feeling challenged, that self-esteem feels really low, right? Like you're like, if I'm struggling with this, then it kind of makes you hard on yourself, right? Instead of just kind of maybe kicking back and like riding the wave and being rooted more in the thought that like spirit wants you here, right? So that's why those doors open and
Well,
pull
your
you through.
reality is a reflection and a manifestation
Yeah.
of where you at spiritually and the vibration that you emanate. So tell me, what has been your personal spiritual path? Do you have a particular spiritual path, belief, religion, practice that has helped you cope with the struggles of being a human on this dimension?
Constantly evolving, right? It like maybe starts with art, and art kind of gave me a place into that. But then because I got invited to festivals, I got to be exposed to more like traditional Native American healing practices and people. And I was really drawn to that early on. And you know, I knew I was Native. I did have my blue card. Later
What's a
on,
blue card?
a blue card is your citizenship card to a tribe. So when
Okay.
you're federally enrolled in a tribe, you get like a little card. They used to be blue. Mine's blue. They may have changed them because the technology changes, but it's like just a little blue laminate card.
What's your tribe?
I'm a Cherokee of
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Okay, that's your blood lineage from.
Yeah,
your
my
mom?
relatives walked the Trail of Tears. No, from my dad's side, actually.
Okay.
My mom may have also had Native, but it's not like we don't have like a Dawes rolls kind of thing to like trace us to that any specific tribe. She was more Mexican.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pardon my ignorance, but I don't know what the Trail of Tears is as a
Oh, that's
Canadian
cool.
Peruvian.
Oh, cool. Well, the Trail of Tears was a super long, gnarly ass hike that many indigenous tribes were forced to walk and leave their homeland and move to Indian territory at the request of Andrew Jackson, even though the Supreme Court had said no, not to do that.
What years are these?
I don't know. It's I really don't know. 1400s maybe? He says 1800s. I'm really bad with numbers.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah.
1810.
Yeah.
Okay. So your family or your dad's side of the family comes from the Cherokee people.
Yeah,
who came from
mixed with some Scottish people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's how the lineage of my father's side came to make all of us. It was a Scottish man. I actually don't remember his name. It might have been Thomas. And he had a couple Cherokee wives. Cherokees are traditionally non-monogamous, actually. You could have as many husbands or wives as you wanted. Women owned all the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And yeah, so that's how we know it started. And that's an interesting story of history, you know, where like a lot of the Scottish and Irish, they immigrated here and they found the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it reminded them of home. So they settled there. And that's where the Cherokee were, and the Seminole and a lot of the others. And so, yeah, they often joined, you know, they had similar ways of living close to the earth, and they joined the tribe and had wives and made babies, and things proliferated from there.
So do you consider yourself Native?
I do, yeah. But I would say it was a struggle to get to that place in my identity.
Okay.
I felt shame and confusion, and because, well, a lot of things, it's pretty complex. Some of it is psychological, you know, like almost intentional. When you start to learn more about how to like remove a culture from their land in order to colonize it, there's a lot of different strategies and approaches. And some of them include shame, separating you from your culture, assimilation, removing your food, replacing your food with shit that kills you. But yeah, removing you from your homeland so you don't know how to feed yourself, take care of yourself, and you start to degrade the biosphere of the gut and other things. I could go into more detail if you want.
Yeah, please. I don't understand. What did you do?
I know it's like one of those things where it's like a rabbit hole, so I'm like, oh, do I hold on or do I go there?
What did you do to
do I even have the ability to articulate it?
What did you do to your gut, Ashely?
Oh, well, if you think about people being removed from their homeland where there's seeds that they've had before pre-colonized contact, we're talking pre-Monsanto, we're talking like genetics of corn that existed, squash, and that's like the food of your people, and like how how you're the food and the culture are so intertwined, but think about the microbiome too.
Uh-huh.
And then you think about the microbiome and its impact on your psyche and sense of identity and consciousness, right? So you attack the food, you move them somewhere else. They kept their seeds in their skirt pockets so that they could keep the heirloom seeds and get moved. And then they so much stuff. Gotta get it out of my system. But yeah, they move you so you can't take care of yourself and connect with your medicine. And then they give you like government sanctioned food rations, and it's like white flour and sugar. You know, it disconnects you from your soul, from who you are, your identity. And then they struggle, you know, and then other strategies are separating the families into nuclear families instead of compounds, so they're not together. And then some strategies are they get a lot of money. You know, you give all these young Native people a bunch of money, and there's only so many tattoos and cars they can buy before they're like, what do I do with myself? And they feel depressed and hopeless, you know? And
I admire the ability for you to get so emotionally connected to a generation that's not even your own.
But in a way, it's in my blood. I
Uh-huh.
have their blood. I have their genes. I've had the ceremonies where they handed me the bundle, and they're, you know, like,
Right.
this is our stuff that we couldn't heal, and we need you to take it.
So this is what you were telling me before about healing ancestral wounds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I didn't even know how much it was affecting me. It was like a private part of my life. As you know, I never really told people about this before. It's this kind of
Yeah, this is the first time
a
I've heard
first.
about it.
Yeah, but you've also noticed I've been kind of under the radar for like the last 5-6 years, right? Like kind of just out of the scene and in private.
Which
So
is your own right, and
we have stages of life where we retreat and isolate, not necessarily isolate in a bad way, but isolate like because we're supposed to, you know,
Yeah.
like there's that sort of 12th house energy, you know, spiritual retreat and asylum. It's like sometimes you just get away from things in order to like heal and connect with parts of yourself, and then you reemerge, you know, with that wisdom, and you can share that with your community. But when you're in it, you don't want to like talk about it too soon, right?
well, I hope
You
this is not being premature, and I thank you for like sharing your process so
I think
far
it's
at least.
pretty like poignant timing, honestly. I kind of expected it, you know, like just following my astrology and what's been transpiring, and I sort of expected it to happen. But yeah, looking back at festivals, I can definitely say that a lot of times I struggled with ancestral trauma that I didn't even know I was carrying, and I didn't even know that's what it was. And I remember going to, you were there. There's a photo actually of you watching me and Derek paint. Gratify. Do you remember Gratify in like
Yeah.
South Carolina?
Uh-huh.
So like the Carolinas are like where my ancestors would be from.
Okay.
And I knew that going there, and we painted this painting, and it kind of looked pretty native, actually, the chick in it.
Yeah.
But what I remember was like all the white kids being like really like drunk, you know, and they're actually in really good spirits. They were very friendly and kind. Like I'm, you know, putting that out there. They weren't like doing anything really
No
wrong.
one's trying to be a jerk.
No one was trying to be a jerk. But I felt so separate and different, and I kept wanting to retreat to the water and like be alone, and there'd just be like some white kid in my face with his beers telling me to smile, and it was like this repeat energy of like cultural like intersection and kind of like just feeling different, and like I wasn't part of their thing, and they were abrasive and messy, and they leave a lot of trash, and it was really weird, you know, and you were like a thing, and I was just like, all I wanted was to connect with the nature and like the river and the waterfalls, and like I'm seeing like giant nature spirits over the trees, but then it's just this booming bass and loud ass kids and all their booze and their stuff, and it was just like kind of rough, you know? And again, this isn't anything about any of these people. This was an internal experience that I was having and living. And, you know, so it was like a struggle to be like, am I being a negative ass cunt? You know, like, and like being an asshole, or like, what is this thing that, you know, is like, is it justified? And I didn't know what it was like for years, and it was like a reoccurring thing. But being mixed and not having that full identity too, and like not having the cultural practices, not being like connected to like Oklahoma, like not going out there that much. My dad's family is like more assimilated. the 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 cultural things that I was given were more subtle because they were the things that my dad like embodied, and again, it was like innate. It was like coming out of who he was, and these were like alignment with our heritage, which you'd find when you do start learning that stuff. There's a lot of similarities in the Cherokee spirituality. They're very similar to like Buddhism, and a lot about like waking up and giving thanks, to the directions and the elements and the sun and the ancestors, and cultivating a magnetic field of gratitude, because in essence they feel that the phenomena we experience in the world, like the environmental dysregulation and injury and all of these issues we have, they believe are like a manifestation of our thoughts, and like that it's it is imperative to get up and give thanks and contribute positively, not necessarily to like spiritually bypass your feelings or anything. That's a different thing altogether, but interesting, deep relationship, different ways of seeing, very holistic. Things are very tied together. Lots of poetry in activity and in physicality. Like life is, moments happen that maybe seem insignificant, but they're actually very infused with meaning and very multidimensional sensibilities. And so even having that and taking that and trying to fit it into like a colonized world and structure is extremely traumatic and hard for a lot of people to be like trying to be white. Like
Interesting. So like the whole festival hippie scene, as much as it's well intentioned and it's trying to be tribal and
Yeah.
and native inclusive,
Yeah.
and it's almost like triggering to somebody who perhaps has that tradition because you're still hurt from what
Yeah, and I didn't
happened in the
even
past.
know.
Interesting.
I
How
mean,
could you pick it up? Like it's just like a instinctual thing,
do you ever
or
have things in your life, like, and it could be with or without going to ceremony and getting an insight, right? Maybe you just suddenly realize something, but you look and you suddenly see it everywhere. It's been there the whole time. You just didn't know, you didn't remember, you hadn't awakened to it. It was like that. It was like I can look back and see it everywhere. Like I can see the art in my house, I can see my dad, I can see our features, like I can see the things I was taught, I can see the challenges I felt growing up in gold country, where it's a colony, like people came here and removed the people who were from here.
yeah.
Growing up here, having that in the history and like feeling separate and different than the other kids, and but also seemingly like I wasn't different. I didn't know why I felt different than them. I should be just like any other little white girl or whatever, but I wasn't. And I didn't know, and I didn't understand the nuances of these things because my family had moved, like they all kept moving, trying to give you a better life.
Yeah.
And like kind of in a way erasing some of those things and
Right.
removing access.
Good intentions, but really not helpful. Might as well like go in there, accept the wound, and try to heal the wound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and then I tried all kinds of I tried various therapies, and definitely plant medicines like helped me a lot in certain ways, but they also were very like, we're not going to like do the change for you. We're like giving you the insight, but you have to go do the work. So I definitely got like healing and perspective from all those things, but yeah, finding a native therapist really like was this key that like opened up a lot of stuff. Because I finally had someone who understood the way I see the world.
Okay.
And they had done extensive work with native populations, and their whole dissertation was on like treatment-resistant depression for Indigenous people and ancestral trauma, and how like restoring cultural practices like drumming and singing and these sorts of things actually really helped people, and that was what her whole thesis was about. And so there's all these interviews, and I asked her if I could read it because it sounded awesome, and so she sent it to me, and it was just like so many pieces filling in that it was just like, oh my God. Oh, sorry, I'm hitting my microphone. But, but it was really illuminating, and there were other small incidences. I had met a guy, his name's Juan, and he is adopted Pomo native. I met him working at a New Leaf in Santa Cruz while I was there, and he has the native art on his hoodie. And, art's medicine, and it communicates and expresses things, and it resonates, and like some art people will vibe and some won't, right? But I was like, oh, I really like your hoodie because I like I like the shapes, I like the geometry. It's what comes out. And he's like, oh yeah, it's from my tribe. And so we start connecting, and I was like, oh, I'm native too, but I was all kind of like bashful about it because I felt weird, and he's like, oh, well, you should come on my podcast and talk about that, because there's actually like a lot of people who are in that situation and would like to hear themselves represented. What is it like for you being white and brown, and like that experience? And I told him, at the time I was like, I wasn't ready to even talk on it.
Yeah.
But he kind of started it, and then it just kept unfolding, and I may hit him up again here pretty soon and be more ready to converse on those things. But at the time I wasn't, and it was but it's one of those things, you like, again, you look back and you're like, all these things are happening. It's just like me not knowing who I am, right? Like, and figuring it out along the way. Yeah.
So, did you have to do plant medicine before you got to therapy? Do you feel plant medicine had a role in your process, or was it pointless? Or without
Oh,
plant
no,
medicine, you wouldn't have
absolutely.
got into the human therapy?
I'm not gonna say it's for everyone, but I really like it. I found myself in a space that was very comprehensive. Like, I felt like I knew how to be. I've had some really profound experiences once I was in the right scenario.
What was the medicine?
Ayahuasca,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And I mean, I did work with Iboga, I've worked with San Pedro, and all in more of a container setting. And I really at this point feel I only really want to work with mushrooms right now, mainly because they don't, like, there's no potential of fucking with culture and like hurting the rainforest and depletion and like harming other people's cultural practices, which can happen with these other medicines, whereas mushrooms are so easy to facilitate and grow, and like they're not really at risk of any kind of.
So you say you'd rather work with mushrooms, or
At this point in my journey, I would rather
okay,
kind of
and
stick
not
to
with
that.
Aya or Iboga because it's too cultural?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I think if you get the experience and you get the opportunity to have it, and then that's great. I think go for it. I loved it. I would never have it another way.
Yeah.
But I do feel inner conflict around over harvesting and tourism, and like fucking with the populations and their cultures. Like our influence can be very negative. And
I'd say you are
yeah.
native, so you can do peyote and not feel guilty.
But peyote isn't even a Cherokee medicine, and I'm okay with people eating it. What I'm not okay with is if we over harvest it to the point that the people whose traditional medicine that is can't have access to it. Or we're going and building Walmarts over their growing areas, like
Well,
throwing in fucking
I think from whenever I
parking lots,
ask
yeah.
natives what's the issue with the low peyote growth, it's not so much getting too much for medicine. It's like roads and Walmarts that like go over lands that should be peyote growing naturally.
Totally. So I mean, sending them support for sure, being aware of those things, and not harming the populations that depend on those things when we have other options.
Right. You mentioned Iboga, which is an African medicine. Is it a root?
Yeah, it's a root.
Okay.
And I don't have a ton of experience with it. I'm not going to act like I'm some master Iboga person, but I got to try it once.
I've never done it, and I hear it's like even stronger than ayahuasca.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think like almost all these things, it's the container and the people holding it have a huge influence as well.
How was that container?
It was trippy. I don't know if I was given enough medicine or not. I definitely, though, I sometimes just have a different experience, and I was like doing really good. I had a great time.
Okay.
We sat around a fire, but I could like walk and carry myself, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just being myself," like, But I had the experience with them, and you get the flashes of rainbow light and all the like flickery stuff, and I like drew some blueprints with. Iboga's a cheeky spirit. I wouldn't say I had
it's
like
cartoony, right?
I didn't have a lot of visual hallucination. It was very verbal, and then we like in between. It's like a 5-day ceremony, and so we like sat and did the thing. And what I do love about it is the lack of dogma, and like you're not like forced to do something. Like we're sitting outside under the stars around a fire. You got your little sleeping bag zone, and you got your little purge bucket. But I loved that lightness of container and not so much rules. I like when you can be in tune with yourself and your needs, and not like so much of like the regulations.
You're right.
So there's something really beautiful about that, and so I really enjoyed that part of it. And but the people facilitating are not Africans necessarily, and I'm not saying they don't have a right to facilitate. I'm just saying that's the container I had.
Uh-huh.
And they had studied with a guy named Mugenda, and had been kind of like given permission to carry medicine and give. And so they were from Humboldt. That's where I went, and they were sharing with their Humboldt family. And so I went and did it. 5-day thing. You start off with the medicine, and then you have a whole day where you're supposed to be by yourself. And I had opted to camp. I did not want to go sit in a room by myself in their house. So I was camping and had my own little thing going on. It was beautiful property. And it was beautiful, but yeah, I just chilled. I didn't have my phone. We got rid of that fucker. Super addictive. And I just had some paintings, and maybe one of them's around here, but I just hung out and had my notebook, and I started writing, and it was really funny. It was like me, myself, and Iboga. Like, and it's like, we started writing blueprints, and Iboga's like, gives me some painting ideas, and gives me blueprints for my van that I really wanted, and the point of the van was so I could go and have more time in nature and just rest and be, like just be in the nature vibes without a lot of stress. And I did eventually like materialize that van, which was cool. Yeah, and then but for the most part, I stopped eating psychedelics after that.
Okay.
And not like I'm a hard no on psychedelics. It was just that I felt like I knew what I needed to do, and I didn't want to go back and eat psychedelics until I had gone and integrated what I was asked to go do, and that was something I had seen a lot too in the community, was people consuming, repeatedly, like just downing it, but never integrating and just going to the next thing and chasing that dragon's tail. And
Yeah.
I didn't like that. It felt wrong, it felt dirty, it felt disrespectful, and I didn't want to be that way. So I just took a break, and it feels like it's calling back again lately. It's been coming back in. But I've just been doing health.
You said that you did therapy after that.
Yeah, eventually. I started therapy actually just last year.
How was
with this therapist? I had done therapy, but
it is like
wasn't
native
effective.
integration focus therapy?
Yeah, she's a native therapist, so it's a decolonized practice, which, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense that native people would have a hard time healing ancestral trauma and depression through conventional practices that are rooted in European ancestry and culture. Like, they're not European.
Yeah.
That's part of their wound,
Right.
is being taken away from what is their like cultural medicine.
Right.
Like, that's a thing. You can't just you don't just melt people down and turn them into a different part of the wheel. Like, we're all here in the wheel, right? So like honoring like that aspect, that there's the white part of the wheel, and the yellow and the red and the black, and we're all different, and we have different medicine, and we're all important. You can't just go and conquer one and then absorb them and be like, they're white now. Doesn't really work like that.
Well, but when you did therapy, it was not about that. It was about allowing you to connect back to that side of you that was wounded, right?
The type of therapy is an antidote to an issue of being able to receive the treatment that's needed due to cultural differences that are incapable of understanding what that person needs. So telling someone that they just have clinical depression implies that there's something wrong with them and not with their environment, right? So that's an important nuance. And then, other than that, I've gotten to deepen my connection and knowledge of my culture because my therapist is of the same tribe as me and has gone through this experience by herself and with others. And so that in and of itself is a very enriching experience. It's like an ancient mentorship,
So, and I'm trying to be very careful about.
It's okay. You won't offend me. I'm not like that.
Offending you and stuff.
You won't offend me. I'm not like that.
When I do medicines,
Yeah.
the medicine tells me that I ain't this shit.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I ain't this white dude, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Inside, I feel Latino.
No, I know what you mean. You're that I am spirit presence.
It's like, you ain't this box, so don't take it too seriously, and don't let this shit drag you down.
Absolutely.
Or make you better or worse than anybody. You are the spirit, and I gave you this avatar, and fuck the avatar.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the avatar that you've been given comes with certain elements that might pull you down, if you allow it to be, or you can be like, this ain't me. I'm like beyond. I am God. God is
it's kind of a through, right? You're moving through it, right? This is the vessel that I have, and it does have certain proclivities and gifts and traumas and pains, and that's real. That's a real experience. And I am also a galactic being of awareness that's actually deeply rooted in Native culture as well, our relationship to the star nations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of experiences with entities and things like that were a struggle for me. So I think both can be true. I think what I'm not doing, I'm not like trying to create a story, and I'm definitely not trying to bypass my experience. I'm trying to be just super deeply authentic and ride the wave of a consciousness who's being this person right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is who I am right now.
Yeah.
In this
Cool.
body.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
honoring your current experience as
Yeah.
Ashely Josephine
And I
Foreman.
think you're correct that it's not to get lost in the pain, but when you're like, oh, like I'm being subconsciously negatively affected by my pain, right? And it's kind of fucking up my ability to just create as this infinite creator, right? But getting into it and understanding it and transcending it is a whole different thing. That's an alchemy, right?
Do you feel like your art has changed in this whole process of healing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always just trying to get better. I'm always trying to get better at art. And so, it's changed a lot from maybe the first time that I met you. I think my colors are still pretty much the same, but I tried to get more hyper realistic, and I think that fucked me up a little bit actually. How you mentioned that kind of made you feel insecure about yourself. I think that insecurity had a way of stopping me from just
Expressing. Yeah.
and again, think of it, most of that is European. Like it comes from European roots of what painting's supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like. It's sort of a Renaissance related thing. Latin American art isn't as emphasis on hyper realism.
Perhaps I never really looked at it at which
Yeah.
continent realism
Isn't that
came
trippy?
from. I
Yeah.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
well, I like realism for some things I want to say, but
It's just one option. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be the number one,
Right.
but that's a theme that we get, right?
I like tribal. Like my art, I consider it like people be like, oh, visionary street art, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But in general, I'd be like, yeah. But if I had to like boil it down as a very general thing, it's tribal. Tribal's got like lines and patterns and stuff,
and it's simplified.
Tribal's what I see when I go into the center of all creation,
Yeah.
which spits out to like Asia and Africa and Peru and Mexico. It's not like only this race has it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a code of creation
Right.
behind the veil
Yes.
of this physical reality.
Yeah, totally. And I think restoring creativity to the fact that that is what it is letting it flow, and then what comes out of you is a unique representation of only you, right? And that we're all tapped into that source. It doesn't preclude that it has to look a certain way in order to be good enough. Right? Like it doesn't need to be hyper realistic, and it doesn't need to be from the Renaissance or even oil painting or anything. And like various cultures have that connection to art. I don't know if we've ever talked about it before, but I did a lot of research into like the shamanic origins of art and how different cultures have utilized art for healing and as a modality, more so than as just like visual decor, although they did that as well, because why not honor life and its art, and like make your spoon look fucking sick as fuck, like why not? If you're just chilling in the bush, hanging with your family and being happy and living life, you might do that, right?
Express God through everything.
Yeah, why not, right? If you aren't being impacted by various forces that are challenging you to be able to enjoy the garden, whether those are socioeconomic or cultural influences or ancestral trauma or pain or mental health issues. These are all real things happening here,
But I feel like your art
Yeah.
has changed from, say, like your more classic, visionary woman meditating and energy emanating to this full-on tribal patterns that could be on the garment of a Cherokee woman.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think I was talking to you guys about it a little bit before. The reason I started making those was I was pretty hurt. My hands were pretty injured from tattooing and mountain biking, and I really hurt myself. And so it became really hard to paint and do tight things, but I still I felt challenged about not having something to do and expressing, I wouldn't say I didn't intend it as an evolution. It was just what I could do while being hurt, and like needing to express myself and create still, because it was weird not to.
I imagine it expresses a different side of you.
It does. And what I was really going for, this kind of stuff is meticulous, or like painting a face perfectly, it's meticulous. There's more of a work to it. And what I was really needing was just to not think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like just what can I do with some tape and maybe like a ruler and just like measure it. And I started really simple. There's a center, there's 4 directions. You start just going from there. And so it was much more just a free flow and like, you know, just channeling, not trying to make something impressive or whatever, but just letting things out, making color and letting it evolve and enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more meditative, like a mandala or something,
Right.
you know?
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Well, I like it.
thanks.
You were telling me about getting hurt. Did you get hurt by tattooing too much?
Partially tattooing too much and mountain biking a lot. I was mountain biking a bunch.
Uh-huh.
And not like riding down a fire road.
You're jumping off cliffs.
We were like shredding gnar, like straight up, like shredding gnar. And, you know, and then we would go from gnarly downhill mountain biking and jumping big jumps and like all of the intense technical terrain is like a lot of vibration and it's really hard on your wrists and arms. And then I would be tattooing and I wasn't really like taking good care of myself. I hadn't fully integrated deeper into that and what that meant. And I got taken out, couldn't work, couldn't ride. You know, I'm still healing. I'm still dealing with pain after long work days. I have to put 24 hours of space in between tattooing and only work a certain amount of hours and do a lot of yoga and stretching and massage and like it's full on. Once you hurt yourself, it's a lot harder to like get your musculoskeletal system back into balance, you know. But this whole shoulder blade, I had a couple of different various shoulder injuries and crashes but this one's like it was like glued forward and at like this forward angle and like when you're tattooing there's all this like
forward man.
Yeah, forward man. So like instead of like sitting upright where both shoulder blades are like in the place, this one's kind of like this a lot, and there's kind of like this kind of thing going on, and it pinches off your nerves, your brachial plexus runs through here.
I'm sorry. As a skateboarder, I've been like having discussions with different artists on this podcast that were skateboarders or are skateboarders. Like, oh, should I stop skateboarding? Like, is it going to interfere with my art? So you're already on the other side of that.
It interfered. I lost my job.
You overdid your physical practice to the point that you can't do your art. And how does that feel?
It was horrible. It was a nightmare. I mean, I lost not only my art and my ability to create and my health, but I lost my income and then rapidly went through my life savings. It was the fucking worst thing that could happen.
Scary.
Yeah. And then it's a lot of work to get out of it, like to heal and still be back to tattooing at a high level and being booked and having clients and making an income. You
got to be very, you got to choose carefully who and what jobs you take.
Yeah.
For how long to go. Yeah,
and there's the suggestion that there's the energetic component of like people's stuff, you know, but I think most of it was pretty pragmatic, like practical shit, like not doing warm-ups and not like stretching really good and like going and shredding and then immediately going into these like holded positions like this where you're like bent over and like and you know lack of knowledge around how to take care of the body. And so I ended up having to do several different yoga trainings and like I felt like doing yoga wasn't enough. Like I felt like I had to be a yoga teacher level, like not necessarily go teach people, but like understand it well enough to actually take care of myself and know what it means to balance out a muscle. Yeah, without taking a class, or if you're in a class and knowing when to not do something that an instructor's telling you to do. And you know, people get injured all the time because they don't know their body and they're following this external authority. And you really got to get back into your body and into your own inner authority around, you know how you feel and know what's good for you and know what you need. And like, if all of my work is this, then I don't need to be doing too much forward folding, you know, or putting myself in a pretzel.
Right.
I need to be getting open.
Yeah.
Getting my arms open, getting my back, getting laid over the other way, you know?
So how long have you been tattooing? I didn't even know you were tattooing till recently.
I kept it pretty private, like especially at first.
Why?
Because I was a scratcher.
Okay.
You know, I learned from another artist. I did that right, and I did my bloodborne pathogen training, and I sat with other artists, but it's hard to get opportunity. And Paulina had asked about like toxic masculinity in the industry, and I was really trying to find a healthy-ish environment, like at the very least an environment where they weren't going to yell at me, you know, and like.
Do artists yell at you?
Not me, no, but they tattoo the tattoo industry is very complex and nuanced, and it's been unregulated to a lot of extent, and it was dominated by like gnarly bikers for a long time, and so there's just elements of that culture and the work ethic, and there's just things going on in there, kind of like any kind of traumatized family or toxic system, you know, like certain things, certain things people get away with, you know, that probably shouldn't fly and aren't actually psychologically sound. And but I really wanted to tattoo, and I needed to find a way to get my foot in the door and get my license so I could be on a professional level and transcend my circumstances.
You need a license in order to tattoo?
Yeah.
What do you need to do in order to get a license?
Not a whole lot. Mostly the county just wants your money, but essentially you need to work at a legal tattoo facility, you know, and you're working at a shop that's legal. They're allowed to have tattooers, and you have a bloodborne pathogen training that proves that you've learned about like bloodborne disease and how to be have good sanitation, and then from there, as long as you have a tattoo shop that's like they're working for us, they'll give you your license because the county just wants their money.
Right. So in that whole thing that people gotta kind of like jump some hoops in order to like have a license.
Yeah.
Could somebody lose it if they're being yelly?
No, probably not.
Because like
Probably
people,
not. They'd
people
lose it.
shouldn't be like abusing emotionally their workers.
Yeah.
And having this whole like macho situation on
It's a
women who
thing.
joined the scene, right?
Well, and it's not even just macho towards women, but there are those elements. But it's very complex and nuanced. It's the whole culture in and of itself with a lot of influences and a lot of history and different forces. And then it's going through a lot of change now, like a lot of industries, right? Right now, it is learning about finances and not just being pirates, and learning about business practices and learning about appropriate expectations and communications. Like it's like, again, like I don't know how to explain it other than it's kind of the dysfunctional little brother that is actually having to figure his shit out, you know, and he has all the power.
I guess like how do you measure levels of sensitivity from a boss to a worker?
Yeah. It's a lot.
Because like perhaps like the boss is being at a level that's not unreasonable, but then the worker is too sensitive.
Bad match.
You know, like
No,
yeah.
that's a real thing, and that is a big part of very common struggles. Is the boss guy is an experienced tattooer who's had to work really hard to get where they are, and they've seen a lot of apprentices in a lot of shops, and so they have their point of view, and they also have their point of view of what they went through 10, 15 years ago, right?
Which when things were even tougher.
Way different, right?
Yeah.
So then when they have people struggling and they're like having a hard time regulating their stress and their emotions and these things, to him, that's like, well, you're not cut out for it, kid.
Yeah.
But to another viewer, it may be, well, maybe your toxic expectations actually have been outgrown and need to change, and this is maybe more close to how it actually is, and maybe the abuse you received wasn't even actually very healthy, and so perpetuating that isn't necessarily a sane decision. There's there's a lot to be determined, you know? It's difficult to pinpoint any one thing because there's a lot of individuals that we're talking about in a lot of different places, right? It's a very broad industry.
Right.
So yeah, I was looking for a place that wasn't too toxic. I had my own sensitivities. I was working through my own traumas. A lot of them involved being yelled at and being in situations of power and authority that were unfair. And so I was trying to find a place that was decent enough that they would let me learn to tattoo and not like emotionally berate me. And I was successful enough in that, you know?
Where are you at?
I'm at a shop, it's called Utopia Tattoo Shop in Auburn. And that's where I started, and it was under different ownership.
Sounds
and
utopic.
They were,
Sounds utopic.
It was a little dystopian, but in different ways. Like I will acknowledge that the people who gave me my first chance at a shop were overall kind to me while I was learning to tattoo. And they just let me learn, and they like let me do my thing. I wouldn't say they gave me a ton of support, like, but they weren't beating me emotionally and, you know, harming me, and like they didn't make me do like a bunch of free labor or anything. I was kind of looking for that type of apprenticeship, and they didn't want another apprentice. They had just finished one, and I was good enough. Like I said, I had a tattooer teach me, And I had sat with several different tattooers and been tattooed and various things. And so I had enough skill, but I wasn't really like good yet, you know, like I was okay. Like a lot of walk-in artists that you would find are just, they're good enough. They'll get it done. It's fine. That's just the tier I was at. But I wasn't at the place where I was like producing like super high quality professional work and being booked out and doing the art I wanted.
When was
that was
this?
where I was trying to go.
When was this?
This was like 2018 or so.
Uh-huh.
And then COVID hit. And I had been guest spotting at a couple different places, so I was starting to get different experience and build my confidence. And so I was down in Santa Cruz. I connected with a shop down there, and like the owner became one of my best friends. And I loved the environment and the people, and it was a really good time in my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your style? What do you tattoo?
I do fine line, mostly black work, black and gray,
Kind of
botanical.
like what you got on your line? On your,
yeah,
on
like
your
a kind
arm?
of a mix. I do some black work blast overs. This is a cover up.
Uh-huh.
This is done by my friend Nate Sigurd, and we're still a work in progress on that. And then a lot of this work was all done by my friend Drew Nelson.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah,
So fine.
So Drew was one of the artists at the shop in Santa Cruz that I really connected with, and we
Uh-huh.
were like best buddies, and we'd go surfing for hours in the morning and then go tattoo, and he really influenced me. He was a great teacher. He loved teaching and sharing, and he was fairly self-taught himself, you know. And so between the shop owner, who was like pretty chill and would like be cool taking days off to go surf and go ride bikes, and he was like my friend, you know. It was really awesome compared to where I had come from, where I was given a lot of shit about where I needed to be, and you know, between 12 and 7, 5 days a week, you know, there was a lot of external authority. I had finally gone away, and so I was just like in a good place, and these were like my family, you know. And Drew is obviously very talented, and I learned a lot being in his environment, but also having artists that were like here, so I could be like, oh, I got to get up there, you know, and that helped me get a lot better.
Right. It's always great to be in the influence of artists who are ahead of us,
Yeah.
even just technically, in order to strive for betterness.
And they're good leaders.
Yeah.
You know, like Drew demonstrates some really good leadership qualities. You know, he's really gifted and skilled, but he works hard and he loves to share and bring people up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So word on the street is that you kill it by now.
Yeah, I guess I'm doing pretty good.
Tell me about it.
I don't know.
Talk flowers about yourself.
I mean,
this is your chance to
I'm
shine.
I'm not like some fucking hell of like 60,000 follower artist from the city, you know. I don't have that. But I make clean, consistent work, and I'm constantly booked, and my clients are awesome, and they give me a lot of say and like creative leeway and trust, and it's a great place to be at in your career, you know, being able to work a few days a week and have authority over your schedule and take time off to go paint now. And I couldn't do that when I started off. When you start off, you're at the bottom, you know, and you don't really you don't have a lot of power, say. As you cultivate ability and clientele, you get more of a power shift, you know, where the shop is now more compelled because they want to keep you there, right? It's not like they're giving you something. It's like you're bringing something to the table and they want you there, especially if you don't do like a lot of bad drugs or alcohol, and you don't bring too much drama, and you like are like a healthy influence, then they want to keep you, you know. You want to have a good humming environment, and that can be hard to have come on, think about it, like getting 30 artists on an island in Hawaii is an experience. Imagine running 8 different manic ass artists in a studio setting, like different personalities, different tastes in music. Like it's an art form of its own, you know, to curate people into a group and have a good, harmonious, positive energy where people aren't exploiting you and taking advantage of you, you know. And like my buddy who's running the shop now is a great artist who helped me on my journey, and I'm planning to collect a piece from him, and he's on his journey of learning how to be a shop owner and a business owner. He's an excellent artist, but he's learning those other skills. And what impresses me with him that I haven't seen in a lot of shops is he really wants to give back. And so as the shop generates income, he reinvests in the shop and in the people in the shop and in charity. He doesn't just stack up a bunch of cash and go buy himself shit, you know? Like that's a thing when you're working hard for somebody and they're taking 40% of your income or something, and then they just stack it up and go buy new toys. But you're like, where are the lights? How come I don't like we need some fresh paint? Like there's a little, that's what I mean when I say leadership. It's like kind of an important factor. It's not just about being good at art. It's like being a decent person and aware and thoughtful and considerate and not too greedy, right? That makes people want to stick around and work for you and work
Yeah.
with you. And
Totally, just people who care in general.
yeah.
So, what's the subject matters that you will tattoo? Do you get to tattoo a little bit of your own artwork, or do you just people come and be like, hey, make me a tattoo of this thing that might not relate to you?
I have 100% autonomy and say over what kind of work I do, and again, that's something you earn as you go. A lot of the time, a lot of times people start at the bottom, and they start with walk-ins, and when you're doing walk-ins, you do just take whatever comes in the door, and that's your job. But as you get better, you attract more clientele who are interested in your style and what you do, and you get a lot more authority. You're in kind of more of the driver's seat as the authority, and they're coming to you wanting your input. And yeah, like now the clients that I have, I do a lot more large scale work, and a lot of it is designed to fit the body and consider the anatomy, which is a lot of work of its own. It's more than just designing and sticking it on. And it's very intimate. It requires a lot of, interacting with the person and listening to them. And people give me a lot of freedom, but I always try to find that middle ground, where you listen to what they want. Like, you got to hear them because it's coming from somewhere. Like, if you're going to get a tattoo, like, it's not like someone hasn't put a little thought into it, and that on a soul level, like, they are asking for something, And so, I definitely try to guide them on making good decisions as far as the design elements. And if I think it's a bad idea, I'll let them know. But for the most part, I'm kind of designing, the best thing I can design for them, and try to improve their ideas the best I can, and do a lot of there's still a lot of botanical and floral and animals and things like that, but I also do a lot of ornamental and geometric, and sometimes a combination of all those things. I get a lot of people who are like nurses or physical therapists or like nature lovers, so really good-hearted people that want to make some beautiful work and collaborate together.
What about your vibration or intention during the work? Are you, of course, we're not all in prayer
Yeah.
100% of the time, but you could silently be all like, okay, I'm trying to inject this kind of coding into this person. Is that a part of your process?
I understand the question. It's the way that I think about it with tattooing is it's obviously very sacred. Like, there's a lot of people you see out there now, like, doing their kind of more intentional ceremony thing, but for me, I feel like it's in it. I don't feel like I have to add that. How do I explain this? Like, obviously I've been shifted by my own experiences, but I don't feel the need to like preach them to anybody. Like, I think it's embedded, and like they're going to have the experience that they're capable of receiving. And so I think that the spirituality in tattooing is in the tattooing, and it's more something that moves through you and not something that you're responsible for like doing to another. And so for me, it's definitely, I'd say, becoming a tattooer and working with tattoo has been a very refining process of, mastery in yourself, learning boundaries, learning perception, learning listening, learning connection and social skill, learning right livelihood, learning integrity, learning to listen to that voice inside. And like, there's something in that, like when you start as an apprentice and you're not even able to make decisions for yourself, it's all external. Whether that person is wrong or not, they're an asshole or not, it's like you have nothing, no ability to just be like 100% in your own inner authority. And it gives you that, it gifts it to you, like through these experiences of refinement and becoming better, and so you like get the opportunity. And so now I just feel like that's what I focus on, is like making sure I feel like I'm in integrity and being honest with the client, but I'm listening to them, not putting too much ego and like wanting to run them over and be like, your idea sucks, like, but I might feel that. I might be like, I hate it, but like just doing my best to show up and make the best work that I can do is really where I put my attention. And then as far as the medicine of it, like the shop environment I'm in, we're not one of those gnarly biker shops. Like, everyone there is very gentle and sensitive and has their own kind of private spiritual belief systems. And stuff, and like we sage and we smudge and like we do care and talk about like energy and meditation and self-care and these things. Like they are important elements, but it's not something I'm trying to sell.
Mhm.
You know, like I
Yeah.
want it to be available to a broader audience, and not
Yeah.
everyone's gonna come hit me up to like do the, you know, play thing
Yeah.
for
Well,
them.
you don't. I don't think you
Yeah.
necessarily have
Yeah.
to do the gestures
Yeah.
or even tell the
I don't
patient
think so either.
about the healing you're doing. You could
Yeah,
just
I think it's
do it.
inherent.
Right. And
And
I
people do tell you that, like they'll come back. Like I've, you know, it depends on the person and what they're ready for and the intention that they bring. But I've had friends go through major transformations that were like fucking crazy, you know? Like you
Mhm.
like watch them just purge like crazy shit out of their life, like literally, figuratively, and like they're like it had everything to do with that moment. And then there's other times where it's just more subtle, you know, and it's a different private experience, and maybe they aren't as attuned to those things yet or whatnot, but they're
Yeah.
on their trip, you know?
Right. Like you're just in your vibe, and if your vibe's good,
Yeah.
then the vibe that you're transferring is good as well,
Yeah.
without overthinking about it.
Yeah. And there's a thing too where sometimes people's tattooing work kind of sucks. Like their skills aren't good. They haven't put the time in to doing it, but they like get into stick and poke, and then they're like 30 and they're like, I'm fulfilling this place where our elders once were here to give us wisdom. And I'm just kind of like, bitch, you're 30 years old white girl. Like you're not filling that space. Like that to me is just a marketing thing. And I do feel triggered by that.
Uh-huh.
Like dedicate yourself and
Do you
make
think
good
it's
work. Don't
an
just make
act?
swag fucking stick and pokes and act like they're magical because you smudged somebody.
Do you
Like
think it's an act, or they're tricking themselves?
probably tricking themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
They
just,
probably don't have bad intentions neither.
most of the time I doubt people are trying to be shitty.
Yeah. But
We
we're all
just-
trying to
we
find our
just don't know.
validation
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, totally.
So, as a sensitive person that I can see you are, how do you feel about hurting people?
You know, it was a journey at first. It actually kind of helped me detach a little bit.
What do you mean?
Well,
It's like, I don't want to feel the pain of this person I'm hurting, so I'm just gonna like cut a little bit of sensitivity here.
there's some paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Hurting them is the least hurtful way to get the job done. Trying to not hurt them hurts them more.
Really? Tell me about it.
Well, if you don't go deep enough and you have to keep redoing a line, or you do it too thin or too jagged, or you just don't do a good job, then you have to keep redoing it, and that hurts a lot more.
Can't half
You
step.
do a shitty piece of art that you didn't do good from the very beginning, then they have to get it fixed. It costs more money, more pain. Like
You're gonna cut somebody, just cut them full on.
they willingly, consensually signed up. Nobody sent them to my website. You know,
Yeah.
like I didn't force them there. Like
Yeah.
they chose that. They wanted that experience and rite of
Uh-huh.
passage. Some artists they talk about it as like transmuting pain into pleasure, or even pain into power. You know, so there are those types of walks of life and ways of perceiving that are, you know, interesting and worth exploring. But for the most part, my clients say I'm really gentle. Yeah, I don't really hurt people that bad. But
Oh,
there are times, you know,
I
where
need to get you to tattoo me.
yeah, I can tattoo you.
My friends are just like, "Rah, you-"
Depends on the spot and the
you-
style, you know.
Yeah.
If you're getting more traditional work with the coil machines, it's probably gonna hurt more. And
Uh-huh.
but I do really delicate work, and people tell me I have a really soft hand, and a lot of times people fall asleep.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Does a fine line hurt less than a thick line?
You know, I would think in theory that it would. I think it might be from person to person, but in theory, I feel like it hurts less because the surface tension for it to like get into the skin is easier. You know, but this is gonna have a lot to do with different people's styles of tattooing and stuff. But like a thicker needle, it requires so much more punch, and it's a bigger hole, right? Like to me, it seems like that would hurt more.
I'm not so experienced
It's
with
like it takes a
tattooing,
minute
so
to get it to poke through, you know.
Right.
So if it's like bigger, it takes more effort or power or
I do
voltage.
know that like a black line where you're
This
covering a bunch of
hurt.
line, it's just like,
Yeah.
like I got
Yeah.
big black
your
spots
head.
in the back of my head,
Yeah.
and I know that was like a whole minute that my
Yeah.
friend Shimu was just
Dude.
skull fucking me. I'm just like,
Totally. And your whole nervous system is like descending through this zone, right? Like it's kind of like gnarly. If you
yeah.
think about it, you're gonna process a lot of stimulus and information, whereas maybe the tops of your arms aren't quite so bad.
Or the legs. I got lots of fat there.
Yeah. Near
So
the wrists hurt the most for me.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
these little
veins
areas
here.
hurt. These little
There's
balls.
so many like for me my boob.
This didn't hurt. People were talking about totally your pecs, but
Yeah.
like people are always worried about the ditch, and the ditch didn't bug
The
me.
ditch hurt me a
Mine
lot.
was great,
Oh, cool.
but Drew's an excellent tattooer, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Nice.
yeah, no errors. That healed perfectly. Like
Well, I'm happy that you're doing good with your art,
Yeah.
even though you got to take it easy now. And I
Yeah.
hope you continue healing
Yeah.
in that process.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic about getting to a place where you can continue tattooing? Or is that something that you, even with the healing, see yourself putting a time limit to?
all I can do is one day at a time, and I think that the goal and the medicine or what's being asked to be integrated is like regular daily routine, and that's something I struggled with, and that's something I'm sure many people struggle with. Like we said, we talk about various forms of trauma and mental health issues and challenges. Like those things become harder for your processing systems to function right. There's a lot I don't think we understand on like a day-to-day level that people are experiencing a lot everywhere, but those struggles to concentrate and the rise of ADHD and cell phones and can become a challenge to realize that every day that is sort of the battle, right? Is to wake up and do your yoga and like give your thanks and eat your good food and make your food and like kind of like go against some of these hard-worn habits and start new ones. And that's what I'm just focusing on doing is like stretching and taking good care of my body and giving it good nutrition and giving it love and friends and like positive healthy things. And then I think that I'll heal because of that. Like it's little things that add up.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
good job
Thanks.
making time to
Yeah.
work on yourself and heal yourself.
Thanks.
What about the healing of the world? How do you see the situation of the world? And are you optimistic that humanity as a collective can heal its many wounds and faults in order to go to a more positive future?
Yeah, I do feel really optimistic actually. I know that it looks really gnarly like in the world from like a certain point of view, but I don't think that's the whole picture. I think that's an extremely like myopic lens, and I think the information we have access to is often filtered by other parties, and so I really don't put a lot of attention there. It's very much more like taking care of the self and starting simple. Like, can I have a healthy relationship with my brother, or like, can I be a good dog parent to my dog? you know, can I take good care of my body and my mind? And I think that um, finding a way back to our joy is kind of the way forward, is the singing and the dancing and the art and the celebration and the being together and the sharing of feelings. And I think it's those simple things that we're responsible for that will add up to a different collective experience,
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's an individual work first and foremost,
yeah.
but it's individuals that make the
It's like,
collective.
yeah, and it's hard to, I feel like it's hard to speak to, because I like even hearing myself say the words, I'm like, I'm not hitting it the way that I'm meaning it. And I'm sure it could be heard as like burying your head in the sand or even just like something that you're entitled to because of such privilege that you have the opportunity to not worry about things, right? So I understand like that it could come off that way, but that's not really what I mean,
I didn't
No,
read it
I know
that
you
way.
didn't. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking about YouTube, like I'm thinking about where it goes. And
I think the people on YouTube that are watching this show are a
Yeah.
bunch of kind motherfuckers.
yeah, but it's, you know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah.
the internet. And I just want to be clear, like,
I don't think those people watch this show.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, just be yourself and fuck
Yeah.
those who misunderstand us.
Yeah,
I don't
true.
think you're being privileged or all those other things you said.
Yeah.
I think you're like so sensitive and like every tear you're shedding on this interview is a gift to the viewers
Thanks.
who really want to tap into like realness.
Yeah.
There's not enough realness
Totally.
out there. There's not enough sensitivity or vulnerability.
Yeah.
That shit's a rare flower to
I can't help it.
appreciate. Well, thank you
I'm
for
like,
the
I
gift
wish.
of you.
Sometimes I wish I could be more private in my emotional experience, but it's just not something I have.
Yeah, you can wish what you prefer to wish, but you are what you are,
Yeah.
and you've chosen to be private and hide a little bit the last few years. And for some
Yeah.
reason, you agreed to do this interview with me to show yourself as you are, come as you are, Nirvana
Just
style.
us in our sweaty little classroom in our tiny little town.
Yeah, no, but it's awesome and it's beautiful and it's a blessing, and we're celebrating life in this moment that
Thank
we
you.
exist. And I think it's super awesome and gorgeous. And thank you for your words.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity and for
Yeah.
coming out and including me.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Ashely.
Thanks.
Hey, I appreciate so much your talk today, and thank you for sharing to the people on the show. Would you have
Yeah.
some final words of wisdom that you would share with any viewer, artist, or person who watched this, where they may be?
You know, I just hope people choose to see the best and hear the best and speak the best and give the best to the people around them.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's all express our higher self if possible, including you
Yes.
guys. And thanks for watching another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, ding bell, and all that cheesy YouTube stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Blessings. Thank you,
Well-
Ashely. Next episode, Brian Chambers. What would you tell me is the difference between psychedelic art and visionary art? Is one the umbrella of the other?
You know, I mean, that's always a really tough question to answer. I think both psychedelic and visionary art owe something to the psychedelic experience. You know, for me personally, the way that I have been able to most identify what I think the differences are is oftentimes the figures and the mystical beings that are largely associated with visionary art. So for me, psychedelic art has always been something less representational and non-figurative.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.